panicking Prime Minister had feared mass resignations and was even drawing up an emergency reshuffle. But despite weeks of threats to quit, Brexiteer Tories appeared to bottle it at a 12-hour Chequers showdown which had been dubbed the Body Bag Summit. Mrs May announced a big shift to a softer Brexit after treating ministers to whisky-cured salmon and whiskey barrel chips at her country retreat. Brexiteers Boris Johnson, Gove and David Davis had previously hinted they were ready to walk. They were even warned they'd have to swap their ministerial cars for a local taxi for the 40-mile trip back to London if they quit. But tonight, while they were still at Chequers, without their phones, Mrs May announced her cabinet had agreed a collective position for future UK negotiations with Brussels. The new plan explained and why the EU could still reject it. The vulnerable PM broke the deadlock by coming up with a peace offering for both the Remain and Leave camps. In a bid to solve the Northern Ireland issue, she now wants to keep the UK closely aligned with the EU in a new free trade area for goods. This will include sharing a common rule book for all goods including agricultural and food products, which critics had feared would make it harder to get a US trade deal. The PM claimed this will help the UK avoid friction in trade, protecting jobs and businesses. But in a desperate bid to prevent Brexiteers resigning, she also said Parliament would keep the right to block future changes to the trading rules. The olive branch to the Brexiteers means Mrs May remains vulnerable because there is no guarantee the EU will accept her new plan. In a sign of nerves across government, the cabinet also agreed to step up backup plans for a No Deal Brexit. More details of the plan. The deal also proposes a common rule book with the EU on state aid rules, which left-wing critics including Jeremy Corbyn say prevent the government intervening to help crisis-hit industry. On the other hand, Tory Brexiteers could be angry at how courts will intervene in disputes. UK courts, not the European Court of Justice, would rule on disputes in the UK, but would have to pay due regard to EU case law in areas with a common rule book. What happens next? The Prime Minister now plans to publish a more detailed white paper next week as she mounts a tour of EU capitals to persuade leaders to accept it. Speaking tonight after a marathon day of talks at the 16th century Manor House, Mrs May said, "Today in detailed discussions the Cabinet has agreed our collective position for the future of our negotiations with the EU. Our proposal will create a UK-EU free trade area which establishes a common rule book for industrial goods and agricultural products. This maintains high standards in these areas, but we will also ensure that no new changes in the future take place without the approval of our Parliament." She claimed this would meet our commitments in Northern Ireland. The PM added, "Next week we will be publishing a white paper which will set out more details of how we will be taking back control of our money, laws and borders. Now we must all move at pace to negotiate our proposal with the EU to deliver the prosperous and secure future all our people deserve." But Theresa May's position could still be threatened. The government insisted the plan would still allow Britain to strike global trade deals and will end free movement and vast EU budget payments. But there will be appropriate contributions of cash for specific areas. And Mrs May could face a backlash for her shift from Brexiteer MPs and millions who voted for Brexit. who believe her plan does not really mean leaving the EU. Tonight, in a sign of the fresh war over Brexit that is looming, Tory MP Andrea Jenkins said she would 100% be willing to sign a letter to trigger a leadership challenge. Labour MP Virendra Sharma, a champion of pro-EU group Best for Britain, said, "We're 2 years on from the referendum, and the party of government seems more divided than ever. It's an embarrassment. A national embarrassment."